What was the atmosphere like at Lincoln Financial Field when you guys finally broke through in 2004 and beat the Falcons in the NFC Championship? I was there as a fan. It's a day I'll never forget, and the feeling in the air was like no other.
Most definitely. It was one of those times where we had been to the mountaintop so many times, and we were unable to get to the top, and we were right. I mean, as the time was winding down, you couldn't believe it. It was like something you couldn't believe. It was something like in a dream.
Now, what was that hit like against Michael Vick in between the tackles in that NFC Championship game? Does that rank among one of your career highlights in your NFL career?
It ranks right up there. It's actually the top one in it's the top one in my top 5 moments in my football career.
Well, we saw some controversial headlines actually on WIP from your mother, and she actually said that Andy Reid was a snake. How important was Andy Reid since he comes back to Philadelphia on Thursday, making his return, coming in here with the Kansas City Chiefs? How important was he to your career?
He was. I wouldn't say. I feel like Jim Johnson was more important than he was my career personally. I was a disciple of Ray Rhodes, and they asked me if I wanted to stay, and I ended up meeting the defensive line coach and the defense coordinator, and they had some great things for me to do. As you know, Andy was more of an offensive coach, so I feel like he helped my career out by having those guys around, if you want to say that.
And Jim Johnson was a legendary defensive coordinator, did a plethora of great things here in the Philadelphia Eagles area. And this defense has lost in intensity ever since he passed away and has no longer been able to be the defensive coordinator. What was so special about Jim Johnson?
Well, he had a way of going about things, and he dissected. I'm a disciple of Jim Johnson's really too, because it's like I took his style and Ray Rhodes' style, and they were kind of like the same styles. They actually picked on the weakness of an offense and tried to make them use their weakness to try to beat you. Because it's like if a team could run the ball, we would stop the run and make them pass. If they could pass the ball, we would stop the pass and make them run. So, and then you just pressure bust pipes. It's kind of close to most good defense coordinators have the same mentality. They have the one where we hit the quarterback as many times as you possibly can, and sack them as many times as you can, and get turnovers.
The defensive unit that you were a part of during the early 2000s was stout. You joined forces alongside guys like Brian Dawkins, Jeremiah Trotter, Hugh Douglas. How was it playing with a core group? And you can't even forget about Troy Vincent and Bobby Taylor at cornerback as well.
It was great. We was a real close knit group, because we was actually some holdovers from Ray Rhodes, and he did. I think Ray Rhodes and the previous coaching staff did a pretty good job of leaving Andy with a good defensive unit, and all he had to do was go and get some offensive weapons, and he went and got Donovan and some other guys, and we handled some business.
We're talking to Hollis Thomas, former Eagles defensive tackle, was on those Andy Reid and Donovan McNabb teams. Andy Reid is coming back to Philadelphia on Thursday night, and McNabb will get his number retired at halftime. And I look back at those Eagles team, and every time we talk to fans, there's some people that don't like Andy Reid. There's some people that are bitter towards Donovan McNabb because they never broke through and won that Super Bowl. Being a member of that team and really had a historic defense in the Philadelphia area, when you look back at those teams, why do you think you guys were never able to bring a Lombardi Trophy back to Philly?
I think it was a mixture of things. I feel like we should have had like a true GM, and I don't feel like Andy should have been a part of. I think he should have been more the coach than an executive, and I think that's where a lot of people didn't trust him. That's why my mom called him a snake in the grass. So
oh, okay.
It's like you can't really trust a person like that. You're supposed to be the coach, and you're telling me one thing, you tell me you don't have the power to do certain things, and you're telling me stuff, and you're an executive. You do have the power to do those things, you just don't want to do them. So it was I feel like it was kind of a trust factor, and then a lot of times they actually bit people in the butt and felt like that it was their system that was getting us to those championships instead of the players that we had. When in essence, a lot of times it was the players that you had and their personality and their leadership, and not only that, but their playmaking ability. You can't just a lot of teams still do that to this day and think they could get by on winning with just any person in that position. You lose leadership, and you also lose smarts on the defense and offensive side. So I felt like we didn't get over the hump because a lot of guys didn't trust him, and a lot of guys, consequently, a lot of guys left, and And sometimes when we come up in those NFC Championship games, there be some guys on the other team that are bitter, that was on our team, that will be bitter about how they got treated when they left here. And, that's pretty much what's transpiring.
So, Hollis, would you say it's fair to say that there was kind of a power struggle between Andy Reid, Jeffrey Lurie, and Joe Banner? It seems like from the front office to the players, the message just wasn't clear.
Well, yeah, it was one of those things where it's like you got to have a coach that's going to be a coach and not the coach and the GM. If the coach is the coach and the GM, he can't come to a player and say, we want to get you signed. I was like, you the head coach and you the GM. You can sign me if you want to.
Hollis Thomas joins us on the hotline, Philly's #1 college radio station, WHIP. And Hollis, Donovan McNabb's also going to be remembered in this game, as he'll be honored at halftime and his number will get retired. You went up against McNabb in practice almost every day. What kind of leader was Donovan McNabb for the Philadelphia Eagles, and what did he bring to a practice on a daily basis?
Donovan was pretty good. He was a good player all around. He knew the game. He was a student of the game and stuff. And he wasn't a big rah-rah guy and stuff. He just pretty much he was a get his job done type of guy, and he didn't really make a lot of speeches. I also had the opportunity to play against him too. I don't know if when I got traded to New Orleans.
New Orleans, yep.
Yeah, I was able to sack him a couple of times,
There you go.
Does that feel good at hitting your former quarterback? Because when you were with the Eagles, he was in that red shirt. You can't touch him. Did it feel good hitting your former quarterback when you were with the Saints?
Oh, most definitely. I was cracking up because Westbrook was like you said I went somewhere else and got kind of nasty. I was like, no, I went somewhere else, and so you're no longer my friend. You're the enemy.
There you go.
You're the enemy. You're in the dome. I was part of the dome patrol.
Now, Hollis, when I remember vividly when you went to New Orleans and when the Eagles went up against the Saints in that divisional round, I believe it was Jeff Garcia at quarterback, and seeing you on the other side of the ball wreaking havoc at defensive tackle made this Philadelphia fan base really appreciate you and realized how good of a player and how much you meant to this team. Was it weird going up against the Eagles a season after it kind of ended bitter for you?
No, because that was the second time I played. We played him in the regular season too, and Donovan was the quarterback.
Yeah, he got hurt.
And he got hurt, and it was kind of funny because they was I think Andy was saying that he wanted to keep me. This was another thing where the trust factor was in. Andy said he wanted to keep me.
Power struggle.
Yeah, and he said that they was looking to get something for me, and I was considered the run stuffer here. And both games, guess how we ended up winning the game? Guess how the games ended?
Yep, on the ground.
With us running the clock out, running the ball.
Yep. I remember that loss to the Saints was gut wrenching.
But you got to remember, both losses was by the exact same score and the exact same way.
Yeah, and it was Deuce McAllister and Reggie Bush just torching the birds on the ground.
It was mostly the Deuce.
Yep, the Deuce. He was a beast.
Yeah, he was a beast. I didn't realize how much of a beast he was till I actually got to New Orleans, and we actually played against New Orleans a few times, and I don't know if he was hurt or anything. But when we got there, and I saw how he went about things and how he ran the ball, he's a hard man to stop.
Yeah, when you look at the New Orleans Saints fan base, I know it gets really rowdy inside the dome, and then you play with the Philadelphia Eagles for 10 years. How do those fan bases compare? Are the Eagles just way ahead of a lot of the teams in the NFL when it comes to their fan base?
Yeah, the Eagles fans is nothing like it. My first training camp in New Orleans, I think it might have been 200 people at the training camp. I'm used to tens of thousands of people being at training camp. So, it was like a culture shock for me. I was used to the year we went to the Super Bowl, it was like about 15,000 people at Lehigh. I get to New Orleans. In New Orleans, we actually had training camp in Jackson, Mississippi at Millsap. There was some stands out there, but it was about 150 people out there, at best.
Hollis Thomas joins us right now on the hotline. And Hollis, I have to ask you this because this is always something that's crossed my mind. And I grew up as a big Patriot fan, so that 2004 Super Bowl, I was exuberant that day when they did win. But there's all these stories of if Donovan McNabb puked in that game. McNabb denies it. Did he puke in that game up against the Pats?
I don't know. And it was one of the things where it was in the midst of the game, so, probably my defensive coach was in my face. But in the same sense, I heard that they had it on tape that he didn't puke, though.
Okay.
They had it on tape. They have it on tape, but they say he didn't puke.
Sticking with Donovan McNabb, he's getting his number retired tomorrow night during halftime. You know that a high percentage of this Eagles fan base doesn't like Donovan McNabb because throughout his career, people could never really get a firm grasp on his personality. He never seemed to own up to his mistakes on the field and could be a little bit smug with the media at times. What was your relationship like with Five, and how was he in the locker room and off the field?
Yeah, he was cool. It was just like a work relationship. I knew him outside and stuff, and we still friends to this day. I see him, we chop it up and stuff. I think the fans kind of they was with him. If he would be quiet and wouldn't say half the things he said more after he left the game than he did while he was playing.
Right.
So I think it's kind of rubbing the fans the wrong way. And he is like the best quarterback in Eagles history. So if he would just shut up and let his numbers and his play speak for itself, then he would be revered more than he would be booed. Put it that way.
Yeah, that's exactly how I feel. You had the opportunity to play at Veterans Stadium and at Lincoln Financial Field. Right. It was crazy inside Veterans Stadium. It was a dump. The opponents hated coming to the Vet and playing on the rock solid turf. Do you feel as though when the Eagles made the transition and the switch from Veterans Stadium to Lincoln Financial Field, that the fan base kind of lost a little bit of an identity? Because when I watch these games today and in the last couple of years since the Eagles have been playing in Lincoln Financial Field, the fans haven't been as loud, the fans haven't been as rowdy, and they seem to have lost that edge that they had at the Vet.
Well, the thing is, the Vet, we had a different type of fan base. We had the everyday type fan,
right?
The all out type fan, and it was the cost of when the cost of the tickets went up, we lost a lot of the edge. Put it that way.
Mm-hmm.
It was like we didn't get a lot of the people like there's no shame in saying it. It's like nobody wants to pay that much to come to Lincoln Financial Field, and I mean as illustrious as it looks and feels and stuff. I feel like we had a better edge at Veterans Stadium because the fans was like rowdy. You knew a fight might break out, so you knew if you was on the opposing sideline, man, I could only imagine what they were saying to the guys over there. And now it's all prissed up now. It's not that we don't have that Philly edge anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Hollis Thomas on the hotline with us. A few more questions with the former Eagles defensive tackle. Zach Gelb, Chase Sr. here with you for the main event on Philly's #1 college radio station, WHIP. And Hollis, let's get to this current group of Eagles. The head coach, Chip Kelly, he runs a high-tempo offense. He wants to get about 80 plays a game. He continues to hurry it up on the offensive side of the ball. As a defensive lineman, and you have to go up against this, and you're a big guy, and I'm a big guy just like yourself, how tough is it to defend the hurry-up offense when you're constantly moving?
It actually depends on how it's done too. It's real tough to defend once they get like 4 or 5. Actually, like if they get to 6 plays into a drive, that's when it becomes a problem because you get them to third down, they complete a third down, they complete a third down, or they're constantly getting first downs. Then it becomes a problem because at the 6th play, that's when guys like myself we start getting a little tired, start seeing a few spots. So we need a little air and a little water.
Mm-hmm.
We need a couple of play rest, and if they see that, if the offense sees that, and they don't substitute, they don't give you an opportunity to substitute. Because if you substitute, then you run the risk of getting the penalty because you're not going to hard charge off the field. You're going to try to walk in slow motion on the field. Whereas if they substitute, they give you an opportunity to substitute. So, but it's going to be hard for the big guys. Put it that way, and I feel like they have the advantage this week because. The Chiefs have some big guys, and they're not going to be able to sub. And I mean, the Chiefs got a decent secondary. I got eight guys went to the Pro Bowl from the Chiefs, and 6 of them was off the defense. But in the same sense, it was none of the up front guys. It was probably like a couple of linebackers and a few people in the secondary. But it was like none of the defensive linemen. So I feel like our offensive line can mash them around and stuff and create the mismatch.
You see some players, though, when they go up against the hurry-up, they kind of fake some injuries. And did you ever fake an injury in a game?
I was about to say, that's what we would be doing. We would choose somebody before the play who's going to stay down.
Since your career ended, you've stayed around the Philadelphia area, and you're doing some really good work with WIP. What's the feeling from you with the future of this organization with Chip Kelly being the head coach. Do you think that Kelly can be successful and bring this team back to the bright days that we saw in the early to mid 2000s?
Most definitely. I think he showed it in the first couple of games. He should have won the first two games outright. I picked the score, but it was vice versa.
Yeah.
He ran into a little hiccup because I know he was on one play where Malcolm Floyd got hurt. He should have challenged that because that was a fumble, and they could have got the ball back. And it's just a few different nuances that he's going to have to learn because this isn't college. Put it that way. And he's learning that, and he's afforded the opportunity, a good opportunity here because he was given a good offense, a decent quarterback, and he could run his system. And he's running his system to perfection. We score 30 points a game.
Yeah.
So I mean, there's no reason if we give the defense only give up 29, we gonna win some games. And then if he gets some quality draft picks and stuff as the quality free agents in here to run a good defense, then I feel like the playoffs are only a year away.
Hollis, final one here on the way out. If you could take one coach from all your years playing in the National Football League, whether it was with the Panthers, the Eagles, or the Saints, if you could take one coach and have him go back into your first year of your career and be your head coach, who would that coach be?
I still would choose. Let me see. The first coach would I played under John Fox, and John Fox was a great coach, but he was a good coach. But I would have to go with Jim Johnson.
Well, Hollis, we really appreciate the time. This was a fun interview. Enjoy the game coming up on Thursday night, and let's talk to you again real soon.
Cool beans. Thanks, man.
Thanks, Hollis.
Hollis Thomas right there, Philly's #1 college radio station, WHIP. You got to love Hollis Thomas. Such a colorful guy.
I'll tell you what, man. I remembered during his playing days in Philly, he was so colorful with the media, and a guy like that is just perfect in sports radio now. Does a really good job at 94 WIP. He's matched up with Rob Cherry a lot, but does it get better than that? Hollis Thomas, he's the man. He was colorful and bright from the beginning of that interview till the end. And
cool beans, man. Cool beans.
We could have taken him for a half an hour.
One thing that you got to look out, though, is that maybe just from his take and what he said about Andy Reid, there had to be a lot of defensive players on that side of the football that are pissed off, that are annoyed, agitated, because you heard what he said about Andy Reid. And my last question, the fact that he didn't say Andy Reid, to me knows that there is definitely some kind of power struggle that was going on in that organization because those defensive players played well enough to win a Super Bowl.
Oh, without a doubt.
And it was the offense that wasn't able to close out some games
or
go on the big drive. And he even said